What if the one person who always claimed to protect you turned around and shattered your life with a single sentence? He didn't name her, but the damage was done before the transcript was even printed, because the world already knew, and so did she. It started quietly. Prince Harry, standing in the Grand Hall of the UK's Supreme Court, gave what seemed, on paper, to be just another frustrated testimony in a long, winding battle against the British press. His war with the tabloids has been going on for years now. We've all seen it. Headlines, lawsuits, interviews, fundamentally wound, and Joe Discovery. Documentaries. He's tried everything to reclaim control. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But this time, something was different. This time, in a single line buried deep in his privacy trial testimony, Prince Harry crossed a line that may cost him everything he claims to stand for: privacy, integrity, justice. Because in trying to take down the press, he may have taken down someone else entirely, someone who never asked to be part of this fight. Chelsy Davy. Yes, that Chelsy, his first love. His longest relationship before Meghan, the one he said couldn't handle royal life. Not because she was weak, but because she was smart enough to walk away.
She didn't write a memoir. She didn't sell stories.
She didn't ask for the spotlight, and yet here we are, front page again. But this time, she's not the silent shadow behind the prince. She's the plaintiff. She's taking him to court. She's had enough. Because that single sentence, the one where Harry claimed that one of his early girlfriends was paid off by tabloids, well, everyone knew exactly who he meant. And if you're wondering how we got here, you're not alone. Let's break this down. Slowly, carefully. Because buried in this mess is a tangled web of broken trust, legal contradictions, and deeply personal wounds that neither of them wanted to revisit, but one of them brought it all back in court. And now, what started as Harry versus the tabloids has become Harry versus the world.
Chelsy. And the stakes.
Far beyond headlines. Let's be clear from the start. This isn't just another royal drama. This isn't some side note about exes in courtrooms. This is about something deeper. Something more dangerous. It's about power. It's about silence. And it's about what happens when someone tries to rewrite history in a courtroom, and the person they rewrote it about finally decides to speak. Why does this matter now, you might ask? Because this is not just a flashback, it's happening in real time. An approach is a back in the UK, sitting in one of the most powerful courts in the land, telling a version of his truth, one that's supposed to hold media empires accountable. That's what the lawsuit is about on the surface: phone hacking, invasion of privacy, systemic abuse by the press. And for years, Harry's built his public image around that fight. But now, people are asking, has that crusade turned into something else? Has his thirst for justice started swallowing people who never deserved to be targets? Because this one line he said in court, it didn't just upset the press. It named someone, not explicitly, but unmistakably. Let's revisit the moment. In his testimony, Prince Harry said, "At one point, one of my past girlfriends was paid by the tabloids. She became a source. I couldn't prove it then, but the pattern was obvious."
What did you say?
That's it. That's all it took. Head and had. Episode 1 times 29 by Pan-Doc. Within minutes, #Chelsy Davy was trending. Think pieces flooded social feeds. Speculation turned to conviction. And Chelsy? She was blindsided. Not just because of what he said, but because of who believed it. Suddenly, she wasn't the woman who walked away from royal life on her own terms. She was the one who sold him out. At least, that's what the public began whispering. Even worse, media outlets began digging again. Old stories resurfaced. Pictures, interviews, half-truths. And in one instant, everything she had built away from the royal machine started to crack. Her business, her family, her reputation. All of it was being dragged through mud she'd never touched. She could have ignored it. She usually does. But this time, she filed a lawsuit. Not against the media, but against him. Yes, him. Let's pause here. Ask yourself, why would someone like Chelsy Davy, a woman who had every reason to stay silent, who had never profited off her past, who had lived deliberately in privacy, suddenly decide to walk into the spotlight with a legal war against one of the most powerful royal voices of our generation? Was it revenge? Was it hurt? Or was it something much colder? Much sharper? Was it the final straw in a long line of quiet humiliations? Because this wasn't the first time Harry had danced around their past in public. He's hinted before, in interviews, in documentaries, even in his book Spare. But this time, he didn't just hint. He implied something sinister. And in doing so, he didn't just reignite old flames, he lit a fuse. There's something especially painful about being accused in public by someone you once loved privately. And make no mistake, Harry and Chelsy weren't just a fling. They were serious, off and on, sure, but real. For years, back when Harry still wore uniforms and partied in clubs. Back before Netflix, before Archie Well, before Meghan. They shared moments the press could never capture. Holidays, heartbreaks, whispered dreams. And in those moments, there was trust. At least she thought so. That's what makes this latest twist feel different. Feel L, 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 L. Dangerous. Because now, Chelsy is saying, enough. And she's not alone. Sources close to her say she's furious, not just at the implication, but at the betrayal. Why now? One insider reportedly asked. Why drag her name into this when she's spent years protecting his? It's a good question, and we don't have a clear answer. But maybe that's the point. Maybe this isn't just about what he said. Maybe it's about what he didn't say, the deliberate vagueness, the plausible deniability, the subtle cruelty of implication without proof. It's a tactic often used by tabloids themselves. And now, some argue, Harry has become what he hates. Let's talk about timing. This is the third and final of Harry's major privacy battles against the British press. He's already taken on The Sun, the Daily Mail. Now it's Mirror Group newspapers. And he's come back to London for this final chapter, determined to make a point. But here's the twist. Instead of exposing new tabloid crimes, he's opened a new wound. One that implicates not journalists, but a woman who once loved him. And that changes the story. Now, the narrative isn't just Harry versus the media. It's Harry versus his past. Harry versus the women who knew him before the headlines. And for the first time, one of them is fighting back. In the coming chapters, we'll show you the exact moment Harry's words triggered the lawsuit. Why Chelsy's legal team believes they have a clear case of defamation, what this could mean for Harry's reputation, and his ongoing lawsuits, and perhaps most disturbingly, whether Harry may have deliberately set this trap. Because that's the other theory, that this wasn't accidental, that Harry knew exactly what he was doing, that the real goal wasn't justice, but retribution. Retribution against someone who once knew him too well and walked away. We'll examine that possibility. And we'll dig into a chilling detail, a private message, reportedly sent from inside the palace, not to Harry, but to Chelsy. A message that may reveal more than either side wants us to know. But that's still to come. For now, remember this. In a courtroom meant to protect the innocent from media cruelty, Prince Harry may have created a new victim.
And her silence is over.
What she does next could destroy the story Harry has spent years trying to control. And what the palace says, or doesn't say, may change everything. Because one thing is clear now. She's not staying quiet anymore. Why did he come back alone? It's a simple question, but the kind that gnaws at you if you sit with it long enough. No Meghan. No children. No entourage. Not even a familiar aide or a royal fiancé to buffer the London chill. Just Prince Harry. Foot up, head low, walking through the terminal at Heathrow like a man entering hostile territory. It wasn't a royal return. It wasn't even ceremonial. No waiting cars with crests on the doors. No press line. No security detail. Informal dress. And yet, somehow, to provide an incentivated work, everyone knew he was coming. Cameras were already waiting. A woman with a phone angled from behind a luggage cart whispered into her mic, "He's here, alone." A blurry photo surfaced online before he even cleared immigration. It felt orchestrated, but by who? That was the first contradiction. If Harry truly wanted privacy, why not take the private terminal? Why not fly in under the radar, as royals have done for decades, when discretion mattered? But he didn't. And so, the whispers began. Was it a message? A signal to the press? Or perhaps the family that he was walking in, on his own terms, stripped of institutional armor? Or was it just another move in a larger performance? Let's backtrack for a second. Not too far, just enough to set the scene. This was supposed to be the climax of Harry's legal trilogy, his third and final major showdown with the British media machine. He'd sued multiple outlets for years, accused them of phone hacking, harassment, even criminal conspiracy. And now, he was facing off with Mirror Group newspapers, one of the oldest and most entrenched tabloid networks in the country. The case was personal, deeply. Harry alleged that his voicemails were intercepted as early as the mid-2000s, back when he was still in his early 20s.
Still wild. Still impulsive.
Still unraveling in public. But this time, Harry wasn't just revisiting old crimes. He was reopening old relationships. And that's where the trouble began. Day 1 of the trial. London was gray, wet. The kind of drizzling cold that seeps into your collar and makes everything feel heavier than it is. Reporters lined the steps outside the court, breath steaming as they rehearsed their live intros. Cameramen in waterproof covers. Umbrellas, live feeds blinking red. And then, there he was. A single black car pulled up. No crasts, no markings. Harry stepped out, alone. He looked thinner than usual. Tense, suit perfectly tailored, but his face betrayed something off. Eyes flickering, jaw clenched, shoulders slightly hunched, as if bracing for impact. The courtroom was already full, seats reserved for press, a few civilian observers. Legal scholars, royal watchers, everyone craning to catch a glimpse of the prince who traded palaces for lawsuits. And yet, as he walked in, something was conspicuously absent. No royal presence, no representative from the family. Not even a distant cousin doing quiet damage control. The House of Windsor, it seemed, afraid of freedom of fare, had left him to fend for himself again. Here's what's interesting. In previous cases, Harry made a point to show strength in numbers. His team, his message. his wife. But not this time. Megan was in California. A spokesperson claimed she had prior engagements, which, for a duchess, no longer bound by royal duty, means anything really. Childcare, projects, brunch.
I met in, but the timing raised questions. Why wouldn't she be there?
Why not stand beside him during what could be his last major legal stand? Unless she couldn't. Unless something had shifted behind the scenes. Something that made this battle too messy, too dangerous.
Too personal.